Committee has found evidence of concerted planning and premeditated activity. The idea that all of this was just a rowdy demonstration that spontaneously got a little bit out of control is absurd. You don't almost knock over the US government by accident.
Exactly, and that is Jamie Raskin, who wants to get you hyped about the January 6th committee hearings that are gonna be taking place later on this week. Actually, on Thursday, they're gonna be giving formal presentations, including evidence, photos and video, testimony, all of that we have never heard about what exactly happened on January 6th with the insurrection. He is saying there that this was what he considers to be a conspiracy. Both himself and Liz Cheney have talked about it in those terms. But also, there was a follow-up question from the reporter. If it's a conspiracy, is it a conspiracy that you believe Donald Trump is central to? And this is what he had to say.
And is Donald Trump the center of this conspiracy? Are you able to connect those dots?
Well, people are going to have to make judgments themselves about the relative role that different people played. But I think that Donald Trump and the White House were at the center of these events. That's the only way really of making sense of them all. The Select Committee has found evidence about a lot more than incitement here. And we are going to be laying out the evidence about all of the actors who were pivotal to what took place on January 6th.
So I'm gonna be honest, he kind of revved up a bit there near the end when he got into the area of what they believe they can show, it being more than incitement. But to the initial question, Jessica, when he was asked about Donald Trump being central to it, it felt like he was kind of stepping carefully. I don't know, is that how you interpreted that?
Yeah, absolutely. Seems to be stepping carefully, but others that are involved with the investigation and the special committee aren't, right? They're clearly saying that Trump is in the center of this. So I'm not sure why he's stepping carefully, but I do think that we might see after this investigation, sedition, seditious conspiracy would be one of the possible charges, also insurrection. And you have a lot of pundits saying, it's really hard to prove insurrection because there has to be a significant amount of violence that occurs. But destruction of property in the United States is considered violence. And so there was a lot of destruction of property that happened. And so I think after this, there's a good chance we could see criminal charges come against Donald Trump. That's best case scenario.
Yeah, look, I don't know exactly what the threshold is supposed to be. I don't know how much violence counts as enough violence. I mean, people died, lots and lots of cops were injured. It's the sort of event that generally the right in other circumstances, I believe, would agree was sufficiently violent. In this case, I'm not an expert, I'm not a lawyer, I don't know anything. It seems insane that they can't pin any of this to him. I mean, all of the different simultaneous schemes, including ones that we're gonna be discussing later on in this block, he sent them there. He literally sent them there. He waited as they did the attack. He gave that incredibly shady, you're great people, I love you, but you gotta go, little speech. I don't know what your level of expectation is for what's going to come on Thursday, but I just have had any of the enthusiasm for the possibility of consequences drained out of me over the past 14 or so months. But I don't know, what are you expecting to come out of this?
I think it's interesting timing, right? Because we also have this grand jury in Fulton County in Georgia right now that just started hearing witness testimony on June 1st, right? They pushed it past the primary because the DA said it might affect the primary. That's DA Fani Willis, who's on the case, who's very confident in the jury that they've selected. They're not choosing indictments, this jury particularly. They can't do that, but they can recommend criminal charges. And to have this investigation end and then have the hearing in a prime time slot is kind of interesting timing, right when they're hearing witness testimony, when they're considering whether or not, we have criminal charges that we can press against Donald Trump.
Yeah, I think they're hoping that that's going to lead to more focus on it, and maybe they'll be right. I think a lot of it is going to come down to they've implied that they have all this sorts of information that we haven't seen yet. we're going to have to see it. There have been a series of leaks through the course of this thing. Some of them have generated a little bit of media attention. I think most of them felt like, absent any context, any understanding of how politics works right now and how it's developed or devolved over the past few years would seem to be significant. We've learned all sorts of things about how super close Trump circle people were speaking to him, what their fears were, how clear they were that this was his duty to stop it from going on. And that stuff was thrown out there. And then like the Kevin McCarthy stuff hasn't mattered. It didn't even matter to Trump, let alone to any of the Trump fans. It didn't even cause Trump to get rid of him. So they're gonna do what they can to get through. But there, I think, are certain obstacles to that. There has been a normalization of what happened on January 6th. People do not see it as nearly as horrifying as they did back then. Also, some of them literally will not be seeing this hearing. So as many people watching this might be aware now, the hearings will be aired on CNN and MSNBC, but also on the top 3 major networks, ABC, NBC, and CBS. That said, for a conservative, they can see it on Fox Business. Maybe some people watch that, I guess, but Fox News is not going to be covering it live. The primetime televised hearings presenting the evidence that there was an attempted coup, they're just not going to be covering it, Jessica, because I guess it's not inherently newsworthy.
Yeah, I think people always point to media news bias by the commentary around the stories that are covered. But the biggest bias in the news is choosing what to cover and what not to cover, especially when you look at what Fox chooses to cover and not to cover. And even Fox uses tactics where they'll be covering a press conference, like after the Buffalo shooting, where the audio quality is so poor and the volume so low, people are inclined to just change the channel. And I think you're right about, with the McCarthy tapes, we didn't see a lot come out of that. And a lot of what's been happening around January 6th is, we have a lot of Donald Trump appointed judges. We have a lot of the legal system failing to hold people accountable. And I think that's why the Georgia story is especially special. This DA, Fani Willis, is the daughter of a former Black Panther who fought for the right to vote. She's the one that's on this case. And she says that the grand jury looks like the diversity she sees in her country, and she's very optimistic. And we have a judge that doesn't have a record, working at a corporate law firm. He's been a public servant and then got elected to office. And so I think just getting one charge in Georgia against Donald Trump would disqualify him from running, which I think is good.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
With the Supreme Court in the look, I am Buzz Killington basically. Would the Supreme Court just sit idly by while a lower court judge did that? I don't know. I mean, look, they're serious conservative legal jurists. They're not partisan actors. They would never act purely for the benefit of the party that they totally don't identify with. Anyway, maybe you're right. Maybe good things can happen. I don't know. I'm generally pretty pessimistic about the world, but some of the Marvel shows have been pretty great. So sometimes good things happen. It's not often these days. I really hope that they have some awesome, compelling footage. And I do think that there is one potential thing. This is, I think, a dark horse possible cultural move that might help us when it comes to these hearings. You wanna know what it is? I'm gonna tie this into Johnny Depp and Amber Heard, because there were a lot of people that got a lot of views and made a lot of money by obsessively focusing on what was going on in that trial. And then the trial ended. And I have to imagine that there was a bit of whiplash for some of those people. These are people that didn't even used to cover political stuff or trial stuff. And then all of a sudden they're like, oh, I can do this and get 1,000 times as many views. And then that cuts off. So I imagine that at this point, a few days on, there are ants under their skin, and they're probably looking for something trial-ish to talk about. Maybe this could be it. Maybe they'll be, I mean, granted, it doesn't have like poop in the bed, and I don't think there's like a really high profile woman to burn at the stake for multiple days in a row, but it's still dramatic. And it's arguably as consequential on the substance as the Johnny Depp thing. So I don't know, what do you think? Will that maybe lead to more people tuning in or trying to make a big deal out of it?
It sounds like I'm gonna have to turn it into skits on TikTok, just like the Amber Heard Johnny Depp trial, to get it trending, to get people watching it. I think it's a good idea. I'll clip the spicy parts of it.
Yeah, exactly. Can we get like, if they play testimony, can we do like a roundup of the most pathetic parts of the testimony? Like maybe we could do that and make a thumbnail of them crying. I don't know. What's that?
A highlight reel.
Exactly. That's what people want. That's what people want.
Check out the Damage Report podcast each day, wherever you get your podcasts, whether Pocket Casts or Stitcher or iTunes. You can join me as I give you the news and stories you want, with a range of co-hosts and interview guests jumping in on the fun each day. Again, that's the Damage Report, wherever you get your podcasts. And if you get them at iTunes, don't forget to rate and review. Sometimes I'll read them live on the show.